So to clear up, first of all, welcome. And to clear up some questions, because we've been off and on, we have Dharma today, Thursday. We will have ordination on Saturday here. No class on Sunday, and begin class again on Tuesday. So today, ordination on Saturday, no class on Sunday, and then class again on Tuesday.
So in Sutta number 70 in the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha talks about his 7 kinds of disciples. And from time to time, over the years, I have checked myself, thank you. I'll just take one. To see what kind of disciple I am now. We can have all kinds of ideas about ourselves, but it's best to check with the Dharma to have a more clearer view of who we are and where we are. Many times we don't meet up to our own aspirations, but the thing that we can rejoice in is if the Dharma can find us, we're not lost. So I always just look to see where I am. And in Sutta number 70, he talks about his 7 kinds of disciples or kinds of persons to be found existing in the world. And it said, what 7? They are one liberated in both ways, one liberated by wisdom, a body witness, one attained to view, one liberated by faith, a Dhamma follower, and a faith follower. So I can remember the time that I was just a faith follower. And I can remember the time when I was a Dhamma follower. And and then it talks about how the requirements for each kind of person, or how you can know that you are that kind of person. And what the Buddha Master has encouraged us to do is to go for the prize, and that would be the one liberated in both ways. So when we talk about one liberated by wisdom, and we talk about a dry, maybe you could say a dry insight, and actually the disciple that we consider the greatest of the dry insight disciples is Shariputra, but actually that's not true. Shariputra was liberated in both ways. He was, and if you really study the life of Shariputra, you can see what was the quality of the liberation of the second kind of liberation that was not just by with wisdom alone. And so it says, what kind of person is one liberated in both ways? Here's some person contacts with the body, and that word body is actually namakaya, which means the mental body, contacts with the body and abides in those liberations that are peaceful and immaterial, transcending forms, and his taints are destroyed by his seeing with wisdom. And of course, one liberated by wisdom or dry insight is a person who does not contact with the namakaya or the mental body, who does not contact with the body and abide in those liberations that are peaceful and immaterial, transcending forms, yet his taints are destroyed by his seeing with wisdom. So if you go back and begin to examine the Pali Suttas, maybe not from the way it is abridged and taught, or the emphasis in Western mindfulness, but with an eye towards the totality of the Dharma, you would see many of the things that was assumed to be later additions to the teaching. You see them embedded all throughout all throughout these teachings. So at some point, we have to realize that, that our practice has not been perfected because we weren't doing perfect practice. And when we began to relax our hesitation and our reservation towards the Namakaya, the mental body, touching these peaceful and immaterial states, transcending forms, then we start to have some idea of what it is to really have the mind, what it really is to begin to apprehend the Dharmakaya. And you don't just go from this world view and like take one step and then that's the Dharmakaya. It's almost like when you're falling asleep at night. When you're falling asleep at night, you don't just go from I'm awake to I'm asleep. There's like this gradual dropping away, this gradual separating from this world kind of as we know it in our waking state. And as you cultivate and with an eye towards these sublime states, and that's what meditation is. It is actually entering into certain states as one. It's not techniques. There are techniques that can lead to meditation, but they are not meditation techniques. And it's a difference because if we don't recognize this difference, we will never cultivate and develop the mind. It's, we call it bhavana, mind training. You're training the mind to do something, and you're training the mind to not do something. Part of training the mind is if you want a cake that tastes good, the ingredients have to taste good, and they have to be mixed, like in a certain way, in a certain order. I learned that working in the bakery. And if you don't, you can have all the right ingredients, but in the wrong order, the cake does not come out right. And you can I remember when we first started baking, it cost us $6 to bake a loaf of bread because of the quality of the ingredients that we were using, and the bread, people didn't want to pay more than $7 for the bread. So for the first year, we had to live on a grant to subsidize to even put our bread in the stores, we were trying to get the price up to $8 because Ingles wanted $1. In the beginning, they wanted $2 off of each loaf, and then it cost. The math did not work, so we started cutting back on the quality of the ingredients, and that's when I stopped eating it. I was baking it, but I wasn't eating it because it wasn't the same. Now, I'm not saying we gave them inferior; we gave them usual and customary. But in the beginning, we gave them extraordinary, ingredients, and it made the difference. But you have to pay to play, and it's the same way with this Dharma. You have to pay to play. You can't just have a one-off meditation idea. You can't just have a one-off cultivation practice. You can't have you have to be on it, spot on, 24/7, offering your best all the time. Now, I know that some of you are getting to the place that that is happening for you right now. That there's hardly, I would say, not an hour that goes by that one's not checking their thoughts, checking their speech, checking their behavior. I know that just by the conversations that are being had and by the conversation tidbits that I get from others. And so I want to congratulate you today because it's important for us to recognize whether we've been naughty or nice, whether we're good or not good. And that's what keeps the balance, it keeps the aspiration. It lets one see the results of the practice. And it helps develop in us, when I say fear, I don't mean like woo fear, but I mean the kind of healthy respect for the Dharma and for Dharma work that allows us to enter into these sublime states or qualities of mind. When the Buddha's son asked him what kind of practice he should do, the Buddha gave a teaching to him, and we use it a lot. And I think it's is it 62? Says, let your meditation be like this. And he talks about the four elements and how you can spit in the wind, put, I don't know, let's say garbage in the water, or throw trash on the earth, and they are not offended, they are not humiliated. And I'm not saying that we should do those things. I'm simply saying there is not a feeling of offense or humiliation that rises up in those elements. And he said, look at your body, you're made of those elements. So there should not be the arising of offense. Now, that can be hard to take because we do feel offense. And so we know that as long as we're being not just easily offended, but when we are being, I sent something to Soma and Busita last. I only sent it to them, and I know it was hard. Maybe I should have sent it earlier in the day because I sent it when they were going to bed, and then I felt bad. But whenever a Dharma teaching comes up, that's when it comes up. And I had picked up my phone, and I don't know, I'm in some kind of algorithm or something, and it sent me a video. And in this video, it was a short video clip of a security. I think it turned out it was a security officer and not a policeman, body slamming a woman. And he didn't like just take her down, body slam. He flipped her over this high. This high, and down to the ground. Flipped her over him and down to the ground. And then there was another one in a store, and the police was having an altercation with the woman. And he was a big, like 230-pound guy, something like that. And the way he subdued the woman was with a fist to the throat. And it was hard to watch. But I watched it because my outrage, and my anger, my rage surfaced in me. Now, I don't know how that jumped on my phone at the moment, but about 15 minutes earlier, it's Kay's cat now. I talk about my cat, but today is Kay's cat. Because I have a high altar that I can't even see over the top of it. I have to reach to place things. So it's high. And the cat's been looking at it the last couple of days. And I'm like, there's no way that cat can jump up there and get on that altar. I'm not even worried about it. But when he looks, I'd say, no. Sometimes I tap on his nose, no. Well, last night, he made it. He jumped up there, and I have glass vases, and I have nice things up there. I was out of that bed so fast. And when I picked him up and said no, and put him down and told him, get out of my room, but I actually felt a tremendous anger. And when I was watching, and then shortly after, I saw these two clips. And I was immediately chagrined because if someone was fighting me, the cat wasn't fighting me. Cat's whatever, 5 weeks, 6 weeks old, something like that, just getting into everything and doesn't know, what he can't get into, what he can. But I could have so much anger of that cat up there on my, and it let me know something about myself. That's what I'm saying. So this is such a real thing. You have to uncover and fight and uproot your own demons. Now, that might not be an issue for some people, but it really is an issue for me around pets going wild. It's an issue for me. Pets on the table where you eat, pets, dogs licking their owners in the mouth and then they want to hug me. I mean, it's an issue for me, but I see it, is what I'm saying. And I'm not going to say, well, that's just the way I am. I'm working actively to uproot the seed of that kind of aversion and seed of that kind. And it's important because Paniwadi, I'm not speaking for you. I can't go any further until that's uprooted in me. And so I'm getting plenty of opportunities to practice this. When I went for the 7-day solitary retreat, there was bugs in the cabin. And I had difficulty. I'm going to go again when I think I have mastered that difficulty to put myself to the test. And I'm expecting that I'm expecting the fruit of realizations to dawn on me. But it's the result of our effort, is what I'm saying. And so when we get into these practices, they're not just things that we're doing by rote and going through the, and techniques, but there's a certain mind and mind stream that has to be cultivated if you really want the fruit that was promised to us in the Dharma. The Dharma is not lacking in its power at all, and what was available to the practitioners of that day and the disciples of that day are available to us in this day if we're willing to do what it takes, to I'll say to be apprehended by those qualities. And so I thought today that I would show you a way that I work with my mind, and I can tell when I'm not doing it enough, and why I encourage us to do our preliminary practices every day. Because if I go a couple of days without doing them, the sweet mind that I touch, that I open to from time to time, is not available to me. And so we are encouraged, constantly to maintain these practices that increase and sustain our virtue continually. So we started last week talking about and doing some preliminary sittings around samatha. And we used anapanasati, the mindfulness of the breath. And in that particular sutta, anapanasati, it doesn't give a further instruction. That's why it's important to investigate. It talked about bringing one's attention to the breath, and it called the breath, the whole body of breath, as a type of body. So we get that, but in another sutta, he talks about how to fix one's attention on the breath. And he says, like a sawyer saws a log, and although he saws back and forth, his eye does not leave the place where the teeth of the blade meet the wood. So in other words, when he's sawing, he's not doing this, but he's fixed right at that one spot where the teeth of the blade meets the wood. And he said, let your mindfulness of breathing be like that. So one is establishing concentration on one fixed point, and where he says where it's going back and forth or in and out, right at that place, at that middle ground, that's where one should fix one's awareness. I don't know, if you breathe in and out through your ears, fix it at your ears. But for most of us, we breathe in and out through the nostrils, and that would be where outside breath becomes inside breath. It was so difficult for some people that one great meditation master said, focus on the expanding and collapsing of the body. But now I'm just telling you what the sutta says. So you can try whichever one works for you, but I'm telling you giving you what the sutta says. The second example he gave was like it's like the census guy gatekeeper who counts the people who are in the city at night. He said he doesn't care where they come from. It's only when they step from outside the gate to inside the gate that he pays attention. He doesn't care where they go once they're in the city. So doesn't care where they came from, doesn't care where they go. It's just that stepping from outside the gate to the inside the city. He said, let your meditation be like that. So he's showing us methods by which we can quickly attain concentration. And that's for those of you who have not been able to do it by establishing mindfulness in front of one, like using Anapanasati. Now, the Buddha gave many objects of meditation for establishing concentration. It wasn't just that, and it wasn't just the 4 foundations of mindfulness. He specifically talked about 40 meditation objects that one could use, and that each one of these produced different results. For instance, meditation and mastery of the blue kasina allows for the arising of certain cities, one being the capacity to walk on water, And so if you want to read about those, go right ahead. You can find them in the Visuddhimagga and the Vimuttimagga, but especially in the Visuddhimagga, it goes into more detail about those 40 meditation subjects. And so he tells us that there's some things that we should do to have a pleasant abiding here and now. And when he starts talking about going into jhana, says with applied and sustained thought. So the moment that we discount or remove applied and sustained thought, it's a good chance that we're not going to get into a jhana, because the mind has not been established on a certain ground or platform for entry into those states, into those meditative states. He says, with applied and sustained thought, one enters into the first jhana that's accompanied by, and he talks about how you will feel and the lifting as one starts to move into this state of piti and sukha. So I want to show you another way, another way that you can begin to get into a particular state. And I'd like to suggest that this would be the way that one would start before they even go into, before they would even use Anapanasati. Because it's about the mental body, right? Not so much the physical body too, but the physical body and its feelings are dependent upon the mental body and its state. And so these two rely upon each other for surmounting. So there are different meditations that we do, I think, each day of the week, or several days we might do the same one, a couple of days we do other ones. But I want to work particularly today with preliminary practices that one could take up even before they start their meditation sit. And when you don't have time, perhaps, to do a long sit, or when there is agitation in the mind, what can you do? Sometimes it's best to uproot something, replace it with something else. Sometimes we can spend too much time trying to uproot, and while we're thinking about that thing, trying to uproot it, it's actually going deeper because we're thinking about it. Trying to uproot it means we have not uprooted it, so we're thinking about it with a defiled mind. And so it just goes deeper and deeper. But if we can replace it with some other thought, he says this is one of the 4 right efforts, keeping unarisen, unwholesome thoughts from arising and neutralizing arisen, unwholesome thoughts, and fostering or maintaining, causing to stay wholesome thoughts that have arisen, and cultivating wholesome thoughts that have not arisen or that are not present now. So after I was upset with the kitty, I felt a little justified being upset with the kitty, because he doesn't know he's not supposed to do that until it's made clear to him that that's a no. And I said I should be more patient until I get him to understand. He can jump up on that, but he can't jump up on this. For me, don't jump up on anything, but if you're gonna have a cat and cats jump, you have to allow them to jump on things. It's just, that's a no. So then I went back to the cat and I apologized to the cat. And I told Jinx that I was sorry that I was cross with him, because sometimes he looks at me like, what's wrong with you? I'm just playing. What's wrong? You coming to play with me? And I'm trying to correct him, and he's wanting to curl all around my finger. Okay. And then 15 minutes later, this popped up on my phone. I think because I'd seen something, obviously, and they put me in some database and they sent me these ugly, ugly things. And I didn't want to see it. But something said, watch it. And I watched it, and the next one. And I thought, that hate that arises in me is no different than the hate that I witnessed on the video. That sense of violence that arose in me. And it was like that. So I could imagine, then I thought about the 2 guys. One, he was very fit. You could tell he's some kind of, a martial practitioner or something. He was like, "That's great." And then when he finished, he did like this, like he did such a good job flipping that woman up in the air, 6 feet landing on the concrete, and he felt like he strutted off like that, and and just seeing that other police officer, big guy, striking. He could have, if he had to hit her, but he ought to be big enough to subdue her. Um, but if he had to hit her, he didn't have to give her that kind of a strike. And uh, um, and of course, that just took her right out. But I could imagine how they might feel if they were in a fight with somebody. Because at that moment, I could imagine how I felt. And I tried to figure out what was the feeling? What did it trigger in me, And I had to sit with that. That became my sitting time. And what it did for me is it took away my anger, the anger that I had for those two men. Now, do I think there needs to be something done about it? Absolutely. Do I think that they have to, they need to make restitution? Definitely. Do I think they should keep their jobs? No. Do I think, I'm just saying the hatred that I felt for them is unreasonable for a bodhisattva to be. That's what I'm saying. You can take care of things that have to be taken care of. But one must absolutely quash taking care of them as a result of our aversion, of our hatred, of our anger. That's what I'm saying. And I know that I can think about it until the cows come home. But the only way that I'm going to absolutely subdue it is I have to have a change of state. Now, that's a tough confession. Well, it's not for me. I mean, but I say it openly so that we will not have any illusions about what this practice requires. And that we can really work on our shortcomings, our hindrances, and our obstacles. That is the practice. And when those are eradicated, we naturally enter into certain states, certain qualities of being. We don't have to try to get into them. They naturally manifest, before us because of our inner conduct. There is no other way. There is no other way. So I'd like to ask you in your meditation to go to the places that scare you. So today, what I am suggesting is another way that one can begin to enter into sublime states. Some of this requires the use of mantras. And the word mantra is said to come from a root meaning that which protects the mind or mind seal. Or mind protector. Mantras are actually more than that because they set up a vibration, a reverberation that penetrates throughout the universes, and it activates not just it's not just a sound that we are making, but it activates a response. And so actually, when we are with a sincere heart and focus are chanting mantras, it is actually the work of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas that gets released and effects benefits for us. So these things don't just happen because I'm reciting the mantra. It happens because of the invitation for the foe destroyers and those who have attained to be able to share, or there is a tapping in of the same kind of mind stream. So actually, the work, it's not so much the call as it is the what? Response. It's not so much the call as it is the response. So there are beings who can help us the same way. Since I told the bad cat story today, I can't really tell the good cat story because that won't matter today. I'm working on the bad Panwani. Okay. But my cat, maybe not this one, but the other cats, they probably think that we're gods because we make food appear in their bowl. When they're sick, we take them to the vet. We know when they're sick. And they don't have to walk to the vet. They get a ride, like divine transportation. So, but it's just my ordinary human capacity to do these things. Well, other beings, other sentient beings of different body, different form, different nature, they have different capacities, And so when we turn our attention to them, it's not as much imploring them to do something for us as it is the aspiration, may we attain those same qualities and attainments. So it's almost like a thanksgiving for the example of what is possible, and may we attain those same qualities. So there are many different ways to understand mantra, but if you could just think of it at the moment as the sound or the vibration of a thought that is used as an object of focus. That's how I want to refer to it today. And when you sit down to meditate, if you've received, I'm going to give you a short one to do today, that allows you to just bask in the vibration of holy beings. And you could start this one with the 8 offerings, and if you receive them, then you do it. If you don't worry about it. I think all of you have this. You don't have to. If you don't have it, you don't. And if you'd like to receive it, you can let me know, and I will transmit that. Or you could do the 8 offerings and then do the mandala offerings. This is the mandala or the hand mandala, and here you're just thinking in your mind about the ground sprinkled with perfume and the whole universe with its earth and its suns and its moon seen as a pure Buddha land, and offering that all of the goodness to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions. Now, the first thing you're doing with that mandala offering, and if you haven't received the initiation for the mandala offering, and you would like to have that, let me know. I can transmit that one. And the whole purpose is the releasing of the sense of selfishness. You know, my this, my that, I have. So it's just relinquishing everything good all to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas for the sake of all living beings. And if one starts to turn away from oneself in that way, it immediately begins to have an effect upon you, upon your heart and upon your mind. It's like leaving home, no place to return to, nothing to cling to, not even my view, abandoning even having a view. And this is an important practice for us, and you can gradually begin to lessen your attachments to your views if you do this constantly. So a lot of times I'll be sitting and I'll be doing the mandala because I'm not going to sit there and carrying that around. I just sit here and do the mandala mudra, and immediately my mind turns away from myself. Now, I didn't think to do it when I saw that video. My mind jumped right in. And I haven't hardly practiced. I've done a lot of reading this week in the bed, not feeling well, but I didn't do a lot of cultivation. I did a lot of reading. And I love reading the Dharma. But the states that we're trying to enter, they're not going to be apprehended intellectually. There has to be the falling away. Excuse me. So giving the 8 offerings, you know, water for the hand, water for the incense, flowers, all of that. Now you've done something with your body, and you're imagining or you're laying out this altar right here at your heart. You know, the altar we have here, I can't drag that around with me, but I can always set up. I can create a mandala right here, could set up an offering right here. And it's a good go-to when the mind is trying to take off with one's views and one's thoughts. And I forgot myself. Then you can do the homage to the 3 Buddhas. Namo Disan Shadoji Champo, that's to the primordial Buddha. Namo Shujamani Fo, that's Shakyamuni Buddha, the Buddha of this world system. Namo Kwanshyin Pusa, and that's Kuan Yin Buddha. You know, she was an ancient Buddha who acts with a bodhisattva vow in this world. And then you can do the homage to the Buddhas, and I'm going to show you how we sing that today, or some of you may remember. And the refuge vows. And now it says, to the Buddha I return and rely. What do you think that means?
Constantly looking to the Buddha as an example of how to be.
Okay, but I'm looking for something particularly in the way that Buddha master put together these particular vows? Because it's usually we're saying, I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dhamma. Why do you think he wrote it in this way? To the Buddha I return and rely.
We have read this from.
Anybody else?
Requesting for guidance.
Okay. Anybody else? There's a particular word I'm focusing on.
Rely, so you're dropping yourself and rely.
Yeah, but that's what we ordinarily do anyway. What else?
The purpose for learning Buddhism is to be liberated from reincarnation, and the only one that can do that can teach us who is the Buddha.
Okay, but still haven't gotten to what I'm looking for.
I guess. I'll talk loud, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Looking at, for me, when I say this, when I repeat the vows, it reminds me to turn to Buddha,
To do what?
to turn to the Buddha, to rely on the Buddha for guidance and for that, to support the vow, to understand and bring all living beings to great, to bring the Bodhi mind, to bring my ability to support and to wish that all living beings, and I would act that all living beings understand the great way, but to get support from the Buddha and to integrate the Buddha.
Okay, okay,
You just stay with us always.
okay. So for me,
Nature.
I'm sorry.
The Buddha is our fundamental nature.
Okay. Okay. So for me, the part that stood out that I hadn't seen anywhere was return to the Buddha. I return and rely. This constant notion of self-correcting, this constant notion of getting back in relationship with the mind, the heart, the aspiration of the Buddhas. It causes a kind of fundamental humility to become established in the heart, that whenever there's even a shadow of turning away, that one can quickly recognize it and get back on the path. These are things that's hard to express in words, but unless we, really have a visceral sense of them, it just becomes words that we say. So I like this idea about returning, because it's a way that we acknowledge our downfalls, and we acknowledge, and I'm not saying we have to go around whipping ourselves. It's just see it, see it, that we can see and acknowledge our downfalls. And sometimes we can think that we're doing really, really good. We've kind of aced this Buddhist thing. But this helps to promote a sense of humility and gratitude, knowing that whatever actions we did, they weren't perfect. And of course, perfection is our goal, not trying to be perfect, but actually having the perfection of being, perfection of conduct, a perfection of speech, a perfection of thought. So to the Buddha, I return and rely. And then we go into the 4 limitless states of mind. And we're going to do this as our quote meditation practice. I did a talk with, what's his name? Fleet, yeah, with my good friend Fleet Mall the other day. And I said, I just need to lay a foundation for this conversation we're going to have, because I have a different definition of what meditation is, and I have a different, but it was really good conversation on it. It'll be out sometime soon. So we go into the 4 limitless states of mind, and this one, if we look at the 4th, I'm just pointing these out before we actually do them, so that you'll have a mind close to them. The 4th is, may all living beings stay far away from greed and anger and abide in, and that word is usually translated equanimity. But Buddha Master says the feel of true equanimity, the FEEL of true equanimity, is like boundless and non-differentiating generosity. And equanimity can take us in a number of different directions. But boundless generosity only takes us in one. It only takes us in one direction. So I like it because when I think about, forget non-differentiating for a minute. Just think about boundless generosity, which is another way that he says it. I'm never pulling something back from me. It doesn't mean that something doesn't come back to me, but it means that I always have the sense of the outflow. And that's a kind of attitude that gets established in one who is constantly bringing their mind towards that notion of outflow. Non-differentiating generosity is akin to dropping my judgment about something or somebody according to my view. He said, he didn't say not to, he honestly didn't say not to have a view. The Buddha said, you'll have a view. He said, just don't be attached to it. So we will have a view. We're not going to just become like dumb logs. We will have a view, but he says, don't be attached to that view. And so that's the difficult part, to have a view and to not be attached to it. The attachment to it is what causes the anger, it's what causes the hatred, it's what causes the rage. It's the attachment to that view. So it doesn't mean that we like just turn a blind eye to everything we see going on, in the world or whatever people do. No, a pacifist is not passive. Early in my work, I did a lot of what could be considered activist type of work. But the problem that they had with me was that I wasn't angry enough. I'm like, oh, I'm angry. You don't know how angry I am, but I know that my anger is not going to fix anything, you know. And it was going to even mess up something that had the potential to get better because I'm giving, you know, them fodder for, say, pointing at my behavior. Then I also knew that things don't change overnight. What do you want? Change when you want it now? But you couldn't always have change now to the degree that you want it. You have to like gradually work with something and make some progress. And then I even know that sometimes, you know, there just has to be a changing of the guard. Some people just have to die, you know, because they're not going to change. And, you know, and the whole, you know, like ethos of the group can't change until some people are no longer there or no longer running it or whatever. So it takes great patience to bring about a kind of activism that has a lot of merit and value. And I'm going to tell you, if something can set you off like that, you're not the one who should be in the front. And so that's what I would tell everybody because I saw a powder keg, but they didn't want to hear that then. And now the whole world is ablaze. And one little thing that we see with our eyes or hear with our ears can set us off, or think in our mind can set us off. How are we going to be any better than ordinary human beings? We have to put these practices into, he guaranteed that if you do, they will work for you. Now, if you miss it at the time you need to activate it, when it comes to you, when it dawns on you that you need it, activate it then. Because in time, hindsight will become foresight, will become your insight. So even when you mess up, when you make a mistake, or when you deliberately do something, knowing that you're doing it, but you just can't hold yourself back, you know, and you go back and you think about it and you regret it, and one makes the resolve to do better, to not do it again, you know. But you can still rejoice in the fact that hindsight produces foresight, produces insight. And in time, one can shift and change. One day, it will all fall away. So we have no right, I'll say, to be discouraged in our practice if we're practicing. We don't know what kind of karmic load we're carrying. So we don't know what kind of load we're carrying. We certainly don't know what kind of karmic load other people are carrying. We don't know because we see partially and we understand partially. And so we have to give ourselves this space, acknowledging where we fall short. That's why I like to the Buddha I return. I mean, because I just made a vow to the Buddha. Yes, yesterday, you know, that was before I swatted the cat. So I needed to return and restore, you know, my aspiration, restore my standing. Then we would do the generating bodhicitta. And there's a chant for that. I'll give you the 3 groups of purifying precepts that and then you reflect after them. And now you're going into those meditative spaces. I vow to cut off all evil within me. There be no evil I will not cut off. Then you reflect and have a heart of repentance. Don't just say them or recite them or memorize them, but reflect. I vow to practice all types of goodness. There be no type of goodness I will not practice. Reflect on that. And rejoice when one is practicing a type of goodness. Vow to save all living beings, there'll be no living being that I will not save. Reflection and resolve, arousing virya. Virya is like valor, strength, fearlessness. And then those of you who are Buddha Master's disciples, you can do Buddha Master's heart mantra. And basically his heart mantra translated means, may everything I do and everything I say be for the benefit solely of living beings. It's something like that. It's all of my work, all of my effort is for the sake of living beings. And then Vajrasattva's 100 character bright mantra. And that's a purification mantra that invokes the minds of all the Buddhas, affirming the aspiration to acquire that same kind of mind. And you can Google the English translation. It's beautiful. It really, really is beautiful. But that's the actual mantra that and then from there one just sits in meditation. And I tell you, when you get to this part and you're sitting, all hearts and minds are clear. So one can sit because they've sweetened the mind. They've caused a wholesome mental states to arise. And that allows one then to abandon or to have abandoned all covetousness and grief for the world. And so one is in a place then one can easily enter into the person jhana. And then, of course, you do your dedication of merit. And if you know the wish fulfilling mantra, you can do, and mudra, you can do that one. And if not, I will ask me for it and I'll give it to you. Okay, so for the next 10 minutes, we're just going to go through this because it's that quick. It doesn't take hours and hours of sitting. It just takes, there are many different ways to shift the mind. And to instantly, and the Buddha Master calls it spontaneously, one will enter into a certain state. But it doesn't mean it's spontaneous, right? Because it's been through gradual training, through gradual learning. But when it happens, it's spontaneous. When it happens, he means you can't take yourself there. You have to arrive at the threshold. And when you do, then it manifests before you. And that's Prajna's job, right? Okay, so we're not going to do the sitting part. You can do that at home. But this I will call the preliminary. And I made some changes, sister, to this and that's why I printed that out. Already starting to draw inwardly as you make the 8 offerings. And then the mandala. Now you've offered up everything to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions. Namo. Namo Di Sanshe Doje Champo. Namo Di Sanshe Doje Champo. Namo Kwanja Moni Fo. Namo Shuja Moni Fo. Moni Fo. Namo Kwanje Yen Pusa. Namo Kwanje Yen Pusa. Kwanje Yen Pusa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. To the Buddha I return and rely, vowing that all living beings profoundly understand the great way and bring forth the Bodhi. I return and rely, vowing that all living beings deeply enter the sutra and have wisdom. To the Sangha I return and rely, vowing that all living beings apply. May all living beings always be peaceful and happy and maintain the causes of peace and happiness. May all living beings always be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all living beings from suffering and my own heart be delighted about this. May all living beings stay far away from greed and anger and abide in non-differentiating vigilance. Through the virtues I collect by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues I collect by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all. Through the virtues I collect by giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha for the benefit of all.
I vow to cut off
All evil within me, there will be no evil. Whoop. Reflection and repentance. I vow to practice all types of goodness. There being no type of goodness I will not practice. I vow to save all living beings. There'll be no living beings that I will not save. Dare Om Bonsai Dare Hong Hong. 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 And if you do it first in Sanskrit.
Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manipalaya Vajrasattva Venopitishta Dridam Abhawa Satosham Abhawa Saposham Abhawa Anaraktam Abhawa Sarva Siddham Me Priyacha Sarva Karma Sachame Chidam Shriya Kuruham Ha 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 Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramami Muncha Vajrabhawa Mahasamaya Sattva Ahum Pe.
Om Bansar Sado Samaya Manubanaya Bansar Sado De Lavadi Cha Jijo Me Bawa Subo Kayo Me Bawa Subo Kayo Me Bawa Anuredo Me Bawa Sawa Siddhi Me Sayaja Sawa Gama Suza Me Zijang Sriyam Guru Hong Ha 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 Ho Bhagawana Sawadata Gata Banzar Ma Me Musa Banzar Bawa Mahasamaya Sadhu Ahom Pe Dorji Cheng Bela Shichi. And then one would just sit. And I'll tell you, if you get in the habit of doing this, first sweetening the mind, reflecting on your good behaviors and your not good behaviors, all hearts and minds clear, then one will be able to sit for extraordinary, extended times of peace. And you sit as long as you want in your meditation. So right there, you might now you can turn to the breath if you need to allow yourself to go into a little deeper place of stillness and focus. Or you don't have to, because you're already there. Then, when you finish doing your dedication of merit, may the merit accumulated from this practice benefit all living beings equally. May all beings increase their fortune and wisdom, and may they always have peace and auspiciousness. So 10 minutes, several times a day, it will begin to sweeten and change your mind, and you will find danger in the slightest fault. I mean, I didn't like try to kill the cat, but I'm really, really dealing with when any kind of anger arises in me, because that's my signal, Paniwadi, to go further. You gotta check that. And I think I'm pretty good, but obviously I'm not. Drive on, disciples. Actually, this kind of striving is a joyful path.